In the early hours of March the 19th, Iran claims they launched 9 Cororumshar 4 ballistic missiles toward central Israel, each one carrying a warhead capable of splitting into 24 separate bomblets that scatter across around 5 miles of open ground. Homes, roads, military positions, all hit at random. The IRGC confirmed this as Wave 64 of Operation True Promise 4 and called it the largest coordinated strike package of the entire war. 80 military and military support targets across Israel. From Eilat in the deep south to Haifa in the far north, not spread across days. 80 targets struck in a single concentrated window. Israel claims they have already knocked out more than 70% of Iran's ballistic missile launchers. So either that number is wrong, or Iran held reserves that survived the entire campaign and the missiles were not even the full picture. Hezbollah launched synchronized salvos into northern Israel at the same time. The IRGC claimed it struck the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain, and Iran set Gulf energy infrastructure on fire from Qatar to Kuwait to Saudi Arabia. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to break down the chaos Iran just hit Israel with, why Israel's air defenses are struggling to stop it, and where the war is headed next. Here's what we know. The IRGC designated these strikes as Waves 63 and 64 of Operation True Promise 4. Wave 63 carried a code name Yasahib al-Zaman, dedicated to the memory of Intelligence Minister Ismail Kib, killed in a U.S.-Israeli strike earlier in the campaign. The IRGC's Public Affairs Office released a statement saying the armed forces set fire to a series of oil facilities considered to be American interests in the region. That language is precise, not Israeli interests, American interests. Iran is telling Washington directly that energy infrastructure belonging to U.S. stakeholders is now a permanent target category. That was Wave 63. Wave 64 went after something different. Ben Gurion Airport, which the IRGC described as the main gathering place for combat operations and support activities. Haifa, where the IRGC says troops and refinery infrastructure are concentrated. Rosh al-Zion, a city of more than 250,000 people in central Israel. And tanker aircraft, that one matters. Iran is trying to destroy Israel's aerial refueling fleet. That is the exact capability that allows F-35I jets to fly deep strike missions into Iranian territory. Take out the tankers and those long-range missions get a lot harder. The IRGC also claimed it struck the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain with medium-range missiles running on liquid and solid fuel. The 5th Fleet has been hit multiple times since February the 28th. Bahrain alone has intercepted nearly 300 missiles and drones since this war started. That is one small Gulf nation absorbing a volume of fire that would strain most NATO members. Now, the Cororumshar 4. This is where the tactical picture changes and most reporting misses what matters. Most people hear multi-warhead missile and picture something splitting into 2 or 3 pieces near the target. In reality, the Cororumshar 4 can release up to 24 individual bomblets from a single warhead, each one carrying roughly 11 pounds of high explosive. They scatter across a radius of up to 5 miles, raining down at high speed onto whatever is below. Homes, roads, parks, military positions. No discrimination. A CNN field analysis of 2 separate Cororumshar strikes confirmed impact patterns spread across 7 and 8 miles, respectively. Random distribution. The missile itself is 13 meters long, 20 tons at launch. It runs on a hypergolic liquid fuel that can sit in tanks for years, which cuts launch preparation to roughly 12 minutes. Once in flight, it reaches Mach 16 outside the atmosphere and Mach 8 within it. And the warhead separates during the terminal phase, meaning by the time it reaches the target zone. The interceptor is chasing a detached object moving at extraordinary speed. The Khorramshahr 4 also carries a mid-course navigation system that corrects trajectory outside the atmosphere in a phase where ground-based electronic warfare cannot touch it. Analysts at the CSIS Missile Threat Program trace its lineage back to North Korea's Hwasong-10, which itself descends from the Soviet R-27 submarine-launched ballistic missile. This is a weapon with decades of engineering behind it. And here's the structural problem for Israel's defenses. Arrow intercepts ballistic missiles at high altitude. Good. But even a successful arrow intercept can fail to stop the bomblets because those submunitions release before the missile body is destroyed or because the intercept angle is not head-on. Once the bomblets are free, they're small, fast, and falling from the stratosphere. Israeli experts say the only reliable answer is to intercept the parent missile as high as possible, mainly with A3 before the submunitions are released. Once the bomblets separate, the problem becomes far harder and, in practice, may no longer be interceptable. Talonbar, a missile expert who consults for Israeli defense firms, put it bluntly. He called cluster munitions a mechanism to bypass active missile defense. He also noted that Iran may be leaning harder into cluster warheads, specifically because its overall missile inventory has been degraded by U.S. and Israeli strikes. Fewer launchers means each missile needs to inflict maximum damage. The cluster warhead is the answer to that math. An Israeli military official acknowledged on record that the country's air defenses are among the best in the world, then immediately added that the defense is not airtight. That admission matters. When a serving official tells you the shield has gaps, the gaps are real. Iran is now equipping approximately half of every ballistic missile salvo aimed at Israel with cluster warheads, and the results are landing. 2 construction workers killed in Yehud outside Tel Aviv. They were outdoors on a job site, not in a shelter. A couple in their 70s killed in Ramat Gan, found just outside their safe room. A 30-year-old foreign worker killed at Moshav Adanim by cluster shrapnel on March the 19th. 3 Palestinian women killed in the West Bank by Iranian missiles, the first fatalities in that territory since the war started. By Thursday, mainstream wire services were reporting at least 15 people killed in Israel during the war with additional deaths separately reported in the West Bank. If you want to cite injuries, use an attributed ministry figure or leave the injuries total out. The defense is not airtight. That phrase keeps proving itself. Stay with me, because what the IRGC did simultaneously on the northern border with Hezbollah, coordination is the piece that turns this from a missile story into a strategic crisis. Hezbollah is not freelancing. That the IRGC confirmed on March the 11th that Wave 40 of Operation True Promise 4 was, in their own words, a joint coordinated operation between the Revolutionary Guards and the Lebanese resistance. That is the first time Iran publicly acknowledged real-time operational synchronization with Hezbollah during this war, and the pattern on March the 18th and 19th showed it clearly. While Iranian ballistic missiles hit central and southern Israel, Hezbollah launched coordinated salvos into Haifa, Nahariya, and across the Galilee. 100 rockets per day on average, often timed to land in the same window as Iranian launches. The goal is not symbolic, it is architectural. Saturate every layer of Israeli air defense from every compass point at once. Force the system to choose what it intercepts and what it lets through. ACL analysis estimates Hezbollah still holds roughly 25,000 missiles, 10,000 drones, and thousands of elite Rad-1 fighters. Since March the 3rd, the group has claimed more than 280 separate attack waves. Israel has answered with more than 250 strikes across Lebanon. Ground forces are pushing deeper south of the Litani River. More than 1 million Lebanese have been displaced. That is nearly 20% of the entire country. Over 968 people killed, including more than 100 children. Major General Rafi Milo, head of Israel's Northern Command, called Hezbollah's re-entry into the war a serious mistake, but he followed that with a warning. The strikes continue. Their intensity will increase. That is not the language of a commander who sees a quick resolution. Towards the end of this, I will show you why the energy dimension of this conflict is now the part that should alarm you more than any missile count. On March the 18th, Israel struck Iran's South Pars gas field, the single largest natural gas reserve on the planet, shared between Iran and Qatar in the Persian Gulf. Iran's President Pezeshkian warned of uncontrollable consequences that could engulf the entire world. That is not subtle. Like within hours, the IRGC retaliated against energy targets across the Gulf under the Wave 63 umbrella. Qatar's Ras Laffan Industrial City, the largest LNG production facility on Earth, responsible for roughly 20% of global liquefied natural gas supply, took direct missile hits. Qatar Energy reported sizable fires and extensive further damage. Production at Ras Laffan had already been suspended since March 2nd after earlier drone strikes. This new round caused structural damage that energy analysts at Wood Mackenzie say could delay restart by more than 2 months, when Saudi Arabia's Samri refinery in the Red Sea port of Yanbu was hit. That matters because the Saudis had been rerouting oil exports west through the Red Sea specifically to bypass the shuttered Strait of Hormuz. Iran struck the alternative route. 2 Kuwaiti oil refineries were set ablaze. The UAE's Habshan gas facility and Bob Field in Abu Dhabi were forced to shut down. Qatar expelled Iran's military attachés and gave them 24 hours to leave the country. Saudi Arabia's top diplomat stated publicly that what little trust there was before has completely been shattered. Rent briefly surged toward $118 a barrel and was trading around $113 on Thursday. while European gas prices were sharply higher, about 25% on the day, and more than 60% above where they were when the war began. The IRGC issued a direct warning after the Gulf strikes. If this is repeated, subsequent attacks on your energy infrastructure and that of your allies will not cease until total destruction. That is not posturing language. That is an operational declaration. Trump responded by threatening to massively destroy South Pars if Iran continues targeting Gulf energy. 3 Israeli officials told Reuters that the South Pars strike was coordinated with Washington, despite Trump publicly claiming the United States knew nothing about it. Both of those statements cannot be true. And that contradiction tells you something about how fractured the information environment around this war has become. Now, zoom out. The Pentagon has asked the White House to approve more than $200 billion in war funding from Congress. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. 20% of global oil and 20% of global LNG exports passed through it. 13 U.S. service members have been killed across the region. The U.S. has struck more than 7,000 targets inside Iran. Iran reports more than 1,444 dead, including approximately 450 women and children. And the IRGC made one more statement that deserves examination. They said that life in shelters has become the current state, and that since the start of Wave 63, more than 5 million Israeli residents have been confined to shelters for extended periods. Israel's own health ministry has urged citizens to rush to bomb shelters with caution because people are injuring themselves in the scramble. Schools are shut. Parliament is barely functioning. The Israeli ombudsman declared the lack of adequate shelters in northern Israel an urgent danger requiring immediate action, and yet public support for the war remains high. Israelis report feeling they are waging an existential fight even from inside reinforced rooms. That psychological gap between disruption and resolve is one of the most important dynamics of this conflict because it determines how long a democracy can sustain a campaign while its population lives underground. Most people looking at this war see a missile exchange. In reality, what unfolded on March the 18th and 19th is something different. It is the moment the conflict stopped being about military targets and became an energy war with global economic consequences that no party controls. All Iran's launchers are supposedly 70% destroyed. Its air defenses are reportedly 85% neutralized, and it just executed a synchronized 80-target barrage across the full length of Israel, while simultaneously setting Gulf energy infrastructure on fire from Qatar to Kuwait to Abu Dhabi to Saudi Arabia. Either the IDF's damage assessments are overstated or Iran held reserves in dispersed locations that survived the campaign. Both explanations carry severe implications. Oil above 113, natural gas up 50%. The Strait of Hormuz closed, 20% of the world's LNG supply offline. $200 billion requested from Congress. No ceasefire framework from any party. The question that nobody in America, Iran, or Israel has publicly answered is the only one that matters now. What does winning look like when the global economy is absorbing the damage? And the silence on that question from every capital involved should concern anyone paying attention. Share this with anyone tracking this conflict. 80 targets hit across Israel, 9 Khorramshahr multi-warhead missiles. Gulf energy infrastructure burning from Qatar to Saudi Arabia to Kuwait. Hezbollah firing 100 rockets a day in lockstep with Iranian salvos. Brent crude above 113. European gas up 50%, over 5 million Israelis in shelters, over 1 million Lebanese displaced, and not one government involved has defined what an acceptable end to this looks like. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your support. And join the discussion in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you think is winning the war? Do you think the war is getting out of hand? Let me know. And please subscribe and like the video if you want to stay updated. And click the video on the screen to see another. I'll see you soon.